Okay, welcome to our USIPA Roundtable, IP Roundtable. USIPA stands for US IP Alliance, and IP stands for Intellectual Property. Today, we're going to be talking about, with the advancements of technology and AI, do we really have control of our NIL and IP? So many of us have embraced AI, and some of us are afraid of it. Some of us don't understand it. Some of us are very excited about it, and some of us are very fearful. So this should be a very thought-provoking conversation. I want to first start out by introducing Scott Frank. Scott Frank is my personal mentor and friend. I've known Scott for over 20 years, and whatever Scott asked me to do, I do. He's just an amazing person. He is an executive of AT&T. He is president of intellectual property for all of AT&T. And he also started this entire initiative of USIPA. So I do have his bio here, and so I want to do this justice. Scott Frank is the president and CEO of AT&T Intellectual Property. He is responsible for the identification, development, protection, management, marketing, licensing, and sale of all company-wide intellectual property for AT&T, one of the world's largest communications company, and the owner of one of the world's most valuable intellectual property portfolios. He is the chair of the IP Advisory Board Law for Georgia Tech and for Georgia State University College of Law. He founded Georgia IP Alliance in 2018, US IP Alliance in 2020, and Global IP Alliance in 2022. He is also a best-selling author of a number of books, including Less Stress, More Joy, which I am absolutely reading, and also the founder of the Peace, Harmony, Joy Alliance, spreading good things throughout the world in so many ways. Our friend and mentor, Scott Frank. Take it away, Scott. Tell us.
Peggy, thank you for all those kind words, and thanks for bringing us together here today. So I'm just so excited that we are going to, hear on this important topic. AI, I think so many people are excited about, so many people are scared about, and I appreciate Peggy and Lana, who are co-chairing the committee for entertainment, arts, and sports for the USIPA, to just have this conversation. It's so important to move society forward, but it's also important. Peggy mentioned about less stress, more joy. I think let's reduce the stress and let's improve the joy. By doing that, having the conversations is a big part of that. And so I think this is how you move things forward, and this is how we're going to figure out how it gets integrated into society. Before I go any further, I just want to thank each of you for taking the time to join us today. And I want to also thank all of our panelists and our moderator. We have, some amazing people who are on the USIPA Entertainment, Arts, and Sports Committee. And, I want to thank Lana Love for moderating this. We got Janeshia, we got Wallace, we got George York, we got Shaka, we got Dennis, and we got Lita, who's going to give some remarks here in a bit. I just really appreciate all them putting this together. It's not a simple topic, and what you're going to hear today, I think, is going to help answer some questions. I think it's probably going to create even potentially more questions. But the point is that AI is here to stay. It's going to play an important role in all of our lives, and the more we can share our ideas on it, the more we can come together around it, I think the better off we're going to be. I also just, before I wrap here, just remind you the goal of the USIP Alliance. I just want to remind you how important intellectual property is to our society. On the one hand, if you look at the COVID vaccine, it was the #1 reason why we got it as fast as we did. Without intellectual property is what incents innovation. And anything you want physically in the future, intellectual property pretty much is going to incent someone to create it for you. But it's not just about things that we want to physically make our lives better, but it's also things that entertain us and things that make life joyful. And, the Entertainment, Arts, and Sports Committee is so important. And this is where I really appreciate the great work that Peggy and Lana have done to grow the committee, to really move the subject matter forward. And I just encourage all of you who are here today to consider, if you're not already participating in the committee, and to help and bring the country together around entertainment, arts, and sports. There's so many things that people don't understand, they're unaware of. And I think there's so many things that we want to, have to read and to watch and to enjoy, and we don't get intellectual property right around it. A lot of things that you want will not come to life. So again, thanks for joining us today, and I'm going to hand it off to our wonderful host, Peggy. Back to you.
Oh, thank you so much. And as you can see, he's just a wealth of knowledge and such a great influencer of us all. So this is the USIPA Entertainment, Arts, and Sports Committee. We are working to empower others to learn. Well, I'll just read it. Empowering intellectual property to advance entertainment, arts, and sports within the USA. Our reach is all of you, creators, educators, protectors, enablers, and users in entertainment, arts, and sports. And we collaborate with universities, schools, organizations, companies, and all of those in entertainment, arts, and sports. And so we're very excited about our movement here, and now it's going global, which is amazing. This is our wonderful committee that we have here today. Well, many of them will be here today, but this is who serves on the Entertainment, Arts, and Sports Committee for USIPA. Of course, my wonderful co-chair, Lana Love, who you're going to be hearing from in just a minute. And we've got Jack Bernard. You can see on the screen what they do and who they represent. But Vincent Castellucci, Wallace Collins, we'll hear from him. Dennis D'Amico, we'll also hear from him today. Jason Demir, Roy Kaufman, Keith Kupfer-Schmid, and Miriam Lord. And Miriam is on our call today, on this meeting today. And I want to make an announcement that Miriam works with the United States Copyright Office. We are so excited that she is on our committee. She has developed, thank you, yes, do wave. She has developed the Copyright Office's AI study page, and she's going to be putting in the chat how you can get access to that. They will be publishing a report in several sections this year on a number of issues, and later this spring they'll be publishing the section on digital replicas, which they want all of us to watch for. And there are going to be more developments on generative AI and copyright, and that can be found on their website, which is copyright.gov/AI. Did I miss anything, Miriam?
No, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I know that these are important questions, and we want people to have access to all of the information that we have. So that's where you can find it. And I hope you have a wonderful event, and happy World IP Day Season 2.
Thank you. Thank you. Miriam is in DC, and she is on the Hill advocating for IP and copyright rights today, literally. So here's more of our committee. We have David Lowry, who many of you may remember. He's a celebrity artist. He founded Camper Van Beethoven and Cracker, and he's also a UGA professor, and he's been speaking out on the rights of artists for many, many years. Julio Mejia, wonderful artist. Wayne Overstreet in the film business. Lita Rosario-Richardson, who we're going to be hearing from in a few minutes. Mala Sharma. Mala goes way back. Her and Julio helped me start Georgia Intellectual Property Alliance, Entertainment, Arts, and Sports. Bruce Siegel. Bruce was my co-chair when we first started USIPA Alliance, Entertainment, Arts, and Sports. I believe Bruce is on the call today as well. D'Angelo Thompson, Alicia Thompson. I want to give a big shout out to Alicia. She helps us with all of our social media, and she did that beautiful graphic that we've been using as our flyer. And of course, George York, who's going to be speaking with us as well. So a big thank you, a big clap for all of these committee members who come together to help us. And I've also just recently invited Daryl Cohen, who's going to also be on our committee as well. So this is the website. It's usipalliance.org. Take a screenshot, and you can click on programs and get to entertainment, arts, and sports to see the latest. And you can also say add me to the EAS community, so we can be in touch with you as well. And so we just want to thank you all for joining us today. and we're going to move on with the program. So our opening remarks is going to be by Lita Rosario-Richardson. I do have her bio here. Funny story. She has a massive bio. She is somebody that you all should know. She is incredible person, incredible attorney. And so I did a little test. I took her massive bio and I put it into the chat GPT, the AI chat. Anyways, and it did not do her justice. So I had to go in there and still add to it. So this is her bio cut down per Peggy. Lita Rosario-Richardson, renowned for her legal counsel in arts and entertainment, leads Shulman Rogers Entertainment practice alongside her role as principal at Lita Rosario PLLC in Washington, D.C. Correct me if I'm wrong on anything, Lita. With a career spanning co-founding University Music Entertainment and representing artists like Missy Elliott, where she worked with Missy's management team to ensure her ownership of her copyrights. She worked with Peaches and Herb, Cameo, George Clinton, and so many, many more. She specializes in securing rights and royalties for creatives. She has also negotiated talent and production agreements with major studios and television and cable companies, including NBC, Disney, UPN, TV1, BET, Viacom, MTV, Fuse, Discovery Channel, E! Network, and Universal Pictures for TV shows like Big Brother, Married to Medicine, The Road to Stardom with Missy Elliott, American Song Contest, and among others. Negotiating with major record labels and studios, she's navigated deals for iconic shows and music. Lita has secured favorable decisions in the Second Circuit and 11th Circuit Courts of Appeal on copyright issues involving Justin Timberlake's multi-platinum hit Suit and Tie and Casey and the Sunshine Band. Assisted with the 9th Circuit Appeal by George Clinton in connection with the copyright ownership dispute of the Funkadelic Masters. Was a contributing author for amicus brief with the Institute for Intellectual Property and Social Justice in the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals for the case involving infringement of Marvin Gaye's Got to Give It Up by Pharrell Williams and Robin Thicke in Blurred Lines. Lita is an advocate for artists' rights, lobbying Congress and serving in on industry boards such as the Recording Academy, which is known as the Granting Organization, Washington, D.C. She served on the Board of Governors. She serves on the board of directors for the Black Entertainment and Sports Lawyers Association. She is a seasoned litigator. She's achieved landmark wins in copyright cases and teaches law at prestigious universities. Give it up for Lita. Lita, give us a few words about
you. Well, just two corrections there. So I left my own practice to join Shulman Rogers, so I'm not doing those two things together. Absolutely. And what was the last comment, the very last comment you made? Oh, I guest lecture at many universities. I'm not actually teaching there. I adjuncted at American University and the University for the District of Columbia, not in the legal department, but in their at the Kogod School of Business at American and in the music department at the University of the District of Columbia. Thank you so much. But otherwise, you got that very good, Peggy. Thank you.
Awesome.
So we're here today, obviously, to discuss AI in the context of NIL and IP rights. And it's a very important topic to all of us who work in these industries and deal with IP or represent creatives. And many people feel like it's a threat to human creativity. And indeed, when we look at the Copyright Act, the U.S. Constitution, let's start there. The intention was really to create a monopoly, if you will, for creators, inventors, and for use of trademarks. I guess AI is threatening that in many ways because it seeks to use through its data sets or through the information that's fed into these various, what I will call algorithmic production facilities to create. And the things that are being created, there are a lot of questions as to whether or not they're entitled to copyright protection. And fortunately, we do have folks here from the Copyright Office as well. But I think it's important to consider what the Copyright Office is doing in terms of your ability to register copyright. So the Copyright Office basically has indicated that there has to be some level of human involvement in order to get a copyright registration for a work that is creative through a generative AI. And that's a very significant and important thing. But it's interesting as well, because when you have works that are not capable of copyright registration, that then means that other people can copy those works without any fear of infringement. And it kind of, bastardizes, if you will, our entire copyright system, and to a certain extent, our trademarks, and potentially the patent world as well. So this is something that, Congress is certainly going to have to get a handle on. There are many agencies within the federal government who are dealing with issues regarding generative AI, because we have issues in politics with false advertising, or generally false advertising. We have, influencers, social media influencers who are being impersonated through AI. And obviously we have actors, actresses, and musical artists who are being impersonated, and deep fakes are coming out. Congress has a few different bills in front of it to try to deal with this, but I would say that none of them are adequately dealing with the issues that creatives feel are most important. I think a lot of the proposed legislation is more dealing with, problems that various politicians are having with deep fakes and false advertising in a political environment, but they're not really dealing with the issues that are really relevant for creators, and possible amendments to the Copyright Act or new regulations that may need to come out to deal with issues that creatives are facing. So when we look at algorithmic production, is what I like to call it, because it gives us another perspective on what AI really is. And I know there was a time several years back when a lot of people were talking about, won't it be great if you could watch a movie or a TV show and then you could pick what the ending is? So you watch it all the way up to a certain point, and then you could go in and kind of decide and pick the ending. And that would be something in order for that to happen, AI would have to be employed in order for those different endings to actually take effect. And that was thought of as really probably a good thing. And there were a lot of consumers who were thinking that might be an important thing or a good thing to happen. However, what's actually now happening with generative AI from the creative standpoint is that creativity is being stolen. Images of famous people, important people, and even just regular everyday people are being misappropriated in the context of AI. And this question of deep fakes is out there that is creating a lot of problems. And so, we're here today to have this discussion about AI and to get a little bit deeper into the concepts of AI. We've seen, for instance, in the music business, how David Guetta, who many of you may know, he's a very famous, well-known producer, DJ in the music, in the house music industry. And he was at a live performance and had generated Eminem's voice that he included in a live performance. And he told everyone it was an AI generated, from Eminem, but the crowd went crazy when he played it, and then it got posted on social media. Everybody may have heard about the Drake, The Weeknd fake that came out. It was a song that came out that was allegedly Drake and The Weeknd, and it really wasn't. And there were issues regarding takedown notices, which is another thing that gets to be really interesting. So as many of you may know, when you issue a takedown notice, that's only for copyright. You can't issue takedown notices for trademarks. But it becomes a little questionable to be able to prove in the context of a takedown notice that something is copyright infringement if you can't pinpoint the elements of it that are infringed. So if the AI is taking some original music or lots of original music and pulling it all together and creating some new music, that creates a lot of problems for takedown notices and for record companies or artists or whoever owns master rights or music publishing rights in a music context to issue takedown notices to actually get the stuff down off the internet. So that becomes a big deal. We saw Billy Joel. A lot of you may have seen Billy Joel. Not so much in the music. He collaborated with a younger artist who always wanted to do a collaboration with him. And they did a video of a song that they created, and they used AI to create younger images of Billy Joel in the video. I don't know how many people saw that, but it was pretty incredible to see that happen. We've seen an AI image of Michael Jackson coming out. I've been working with the former wife of the ex-wife of DMX and the DMX estate, and we're getting contracts in from third-party companies that want to create AI generated music using DMX's voice, and they're asking us to deliver a certain amount of pre-existing material. And of course, the dilemma is that most of that pre-existing material belongs to Universal. So we can't deliver that to them to use in the context of AI to create new AI music. So all of these things are becoming very relevant. I think practicing attorneys are seeing contracts coming across their desk with AI proposed creations on it, whether it's in music, television, or film, or for video uses. We had someone who had a sample of a DMX song that wanted to create an image of DMX using AI in order to put in a music video. And so, there was a time when people thought about holograms and using holograms for music artists who have passed away, and that never really came to fruition. But it seems that now with AI, there's a new hope for that to happen. So while there are advantages that the creative communities can use for AI, like different endings for movies or TV shows, or for estates of artists, or, other famous people to, regenerate them in some kind of a way for advertising or for whatever purpose, there are also the other issues that surrounding infringement, unauthorized uses, deep fakes. And so lots of litigation going on here. And the Copyright Office is very much involved in this. And we're always looking to see where they're coming out on things. Obviously, they ask for comments and have roundtables and do lots of things to get input from the community. And obviously, both sides are agreeing to come to the table. But clearly, we need some defined rules on how this is all going to work. In conclusion, I'll just say that one of the most, I guess, important or significant things that I've heard about AI, because obviously it goes beyond the entertainment business and IP issues into our greater society, is that there need to be certain ethical rules that are embodied into AI, into the people who are creating these algorithms, so that the algorithms have some level of consciousness, if you will, for lack of a better word, in terms of what they do and how they do it. And I think there are a lot of those kind of moral or ethical directives that, from the creator standpoint, that we could supply or say these are things that we feel need to be included in these AI instructions, in these algorithms, so that we're in a place where it can become something that is beneficial to our creative communities, as opposed to something that we're leery of, afraid of, and very concerned about eroding, obviously the income base and the monetary base for our creative communities. And with that, I will turn it back over to Peggy.
Well, thank you. That was definitely thought-provoking. I was just listening to every word, and I agree with you. We need to make sure that that we're protected. But also we're getting ready to hear of what this means to us in the different industries. And so I want to turn it over to our next group, which is our panel. And I want to introduce our moderator, who is Lana Love. And again, thank you, Lita. That was amazing. Really appreciate your service and your wise words. Lana Love is going to be leading this amazing panel, which you can see is quite the dream team. We've got Dennis D'Amico, the music, who's a music producer. We've got Wallace Collins, IP and entertainment attorney. Janeshia Adams-Ginyard. She is an Emmy-nominated actor and an activist. Shaka Smith, artist and influencer, lawyer, and And then George York, who is senior VP of RIAA, and you will get to hear from them and see why we asked them to speak today on this topic. But Lana, I want to start with Lana first. I have to say that I've known Lana for decades, and she's just a lovely person, and I just consider her to be such a great friend. But she's also the co-chair with me of the Entertainment, Arts, and Sports Committee for USIPA. So she is such a big help to us here. But she is a contemporary pop artist. I'm going to read this lovely bio from her website. Based in New York, originally from Atlanta, Georgia, and Naples, Florida. She is a classically trained singer-songwriter, pianist, dancer, and actress. Her first EP, Lana Love, released in 2021, garnering support across Shazam and Apple Music playlists. In 2021, PBS broadcasted a 1-hour live special in honor of her late mentor, Frank Fetta, which she headlined for a crowd of over 6,000 at the Redlands Bowl. As a live performer, Lana got her start as a Disney princess and has toured in over 40 countries. She served as a key lyricist and assistant director for Netflix's Making Malinche, I think that's how you say it, collaborating with Nacho Cano, and she has further amassed credits with networks such as NBC, Disney, Warner Brothers, Discovery Channel, and Telemundo. She is recognized for her genre bending of opera, musical theater, jazz, pop, and rock. She's been featured in People, Broadway World, NBC, Insider, and Billboard, among other outlets. And then again in 2022, she joined the board of the U.S. Intellectual Property Alliance. And she's also co-chair. She's also serves on the Creators Advisory Board for the Copyright Alliance. She works to educate and empower artists to own their copyrights, and she made her big debut on, you might remember her from the NBC's The Voice, where she was on Teen Legend. And you can go to her website, which is lanalove.co, and read more about her and see her wonderful music and whatnot. And I turn it over to Lana to head up this wonderful panel.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Peggy, for the warm welcome. I just love you. And welcome to the USIPA EAS Virtual IP Roundtable. Happy World Intellectual Property Day to everyone. So in lieu of today's discussion, I wanted to give some thanks, first of all, to Peggy, who really put this whole thing together and who has done so much, not only for USIPA, but for just artists in general. And she is she's like my music business angel / godmother. So I just love her. And she's been a wonderful friend, mentor, and co-pilot in this thing. So thank you. Love you. And big thank you to Scott, because USIPA would not exist without you. And lastly, thank you to Lita for your opening thoughts. That was amazing. And so interesting to hear the word consciousness when talking about AI, because there's something to that maybe we can play on today and kind of flesh out more. Because we're all really in this thing together and no one has the answer for it yet. So panels like this are really, really important so that we can, collect information and figure out how we're going to move forward as a unit, as a whole. So also thank you to our panel. I know many of you, and I'm just it's such a great group, and I'm so excited for this conversation and to push the needle forward, which is what we're here to do. So let's begin. I'd love to start off with introductions. So panelists, please tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you got into the industry that you are in. Dennis, let's start with you.
Okay, let me unmute myself. Well, my name is Dennis D'Amico. I have been in this business now going on over 50 years. I started as a young guy. I started as a songwriter and an actor. I worked on the soaps, and at night I'd play all the clubs in New York. And then I went on to, being every bit of this business, casting director to agent, all that. And then I really got into production and started producing off-Broadway and then off-Broadway shows. And now I produce film and television, but I produce a lot of records as well. I work down in Nashville quite a bit. I have my own recording studios here in New Jersey. But just to keep it short, I'm a producer, and it doesn't really matter what the IP or the content is. I can produce pretty much everything from film, television, to music. I've worked with, I know everybody likes to talk about McCartney, but yes, I produced his classical music and did a world premiere for him in Teatro Colón in South America, in Buenos Aires, which is one of the top classical venues in the world. You have to be invited down there. When you have a name like McCartney, you do get invited to things pretty easily. But that's kind of, where I'm at today. I still compose and still write a lot of music as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Wallace, how about you?
Hi. Well, I before I went to law school, growing up, high school, through college and after, I was an artist. I was signed to Epic Records when I was 19 years old, had a band, was a songwriter. So that's kind of where the music part of it got me started. And then when I kind of mid-20s kind of felt that I had done all I could do, the next step was try what else can I do? Come back reincarnated as a lawyer. So the first couple of years, out of law school, I was doing corporate law, but eventually I was able to kind of claw my way back into the entertainment industry, and was doing initially mostly music, record contracts, production agreements, for new artists, or litigating, chasing royalties for producers or legacy artists who hadn't been paid. And that's kind of how I got going in the beginning. And now I've been an entertainment lawyer for 35 years, so maybe a little more than that. So, every kind of transactional thing, and it expanded into video and then film and television and websites. And so, and now dealing with AI, kind of went from the physical world and the bootlegging to the digital world and the whatever world this is we're in now. But yeah, so again, I call myself an entertainment and intellectual property lawyer, but it's really contracts for every kind of media in entertainment in this day and age. So.
Awesome. That's a fun journey. Hopefully you were able to read your contract when you first signed that.
I didn't know what I was reading, but all right. I didn't know what I was reading, but I did actually have a lawyer help me at the time. So
that's good. Good on you. All right, Miss Janeshia.
Hey everyone, I am Janeshia Adams-Ginyard. I'm an Emmy-nominated actress, stuntwoman, and voice actor. I am, by every stretch of the word, a multi-hyphenate. I got into the industry acting first, but I was always an athlete. Like, I did collegiate track and field. I did track growing up as in elementary. So from college, I went to UC Berkeley, go Bears. There is no more Pac-10, but whatever. But I did track and field there, and then went on to be a U.S. national bobsledder on the U.S. national team as a brakeman. And it was from there where I started doing a lot of Nike campaigns, Nike CrossFit, basketball, soccer, and kind of transitioned into entertainment that way. And I was always a jock, whether it was run a commercial, a TV show, a film. And that's basically how I got my start and how I navigated in the industry. From doing that and acting as the jock, people was like, you should do stunts. And I didn't know what stunts was. I had no one in my family that did stunts, but I was a natural athlete. And so started doing stunt jobs. I hired a private tumbling coach because I do believe when you enter into the field of whatever it is, you should be a student of the sport. So I needed to know what stunts was, what do they do? And I found out that you need to know some air awareness. You're gonna be riding a wire and crash into a wall. So that's why I hired a private tumbling coach. And then I took up Taekwondo as my martial arts because I did research and saw that Taekwondo is 80% kicks, 20% hand. And if you're watching any type of movie, you're seeing these very lovely roundhouse kicks, spinning hook kicks. And I'm like, I need to learn that. So that's basically, in a nutshell, I have truncated my story, y'all. But that's how I've gotten into this industry. So thank you for having me too. Thank you.
You are so fierce. She forgot to mention that she also has a podcast and a book.
Yeah.
I have a copy of the book. I want a signed copy, but we'll get to that later.
You'll get it. Sorry. Oh, really quick, since you said that, I also am the voice of female Cartman on South Park joining the Pandaverse. So thank you.
11 out of 10. She was also in Wakanda Forever, so you know. There's also that and many things. But her new book is titled "Don't Wait for the Period, Leave at the Comma, Your Rule Book on Disengaging from Negativity and Taking Your Power Back." So I think everyone needs that. And I will shamelessly plug it right now. All right, Shaka, you are up.
Hey, great to be here. Thank you, Lana, for the invite. I'm an activist, artist, and attorney. In the activist space, I started my own foundation called the Beryl Angela Smith Foundation, named after my mom and my grandmother. And in that vein, I work with different organizations to kind of improve their sort of charitable mission. So I work with Project Save Our Surf, which is a beach cleanup organization, Pups Without Borders. As a vegan, I'm kind of concerned about climate change and, of course, animal welfare. I've also been working a lot with the Unhoused in LA, working with Habitat for Humanity, Project Pop Drop, and Harvest Home LA. In the artist space, I'm an actor. You may have seen me on the most recent season of a Black Lady sketch show. I'm also a musician. A single Fall in Love dropped a few months ago. That's out right now. And I host my own podcast called the Wanderwell Podcast, where we talk to different people about their journey throughout life. And we try to garner some good nuggets of wisdom from that. So that's what I'm working on right now, and glad to be here to talk more about these very salient issues. And of course, using my law degree to kind of add to what I know about on both sides, legal and as an artist.
Awesome. We are so lucky and happy to have you. And he forgot to mention that he's an influencer. You can check him out at Shaka Strong. Did I get that right? Yes. Yes. And his new song's amazing. So, and same with the podcast. So you're just total talent. Happy to have you. And lastly, George, take it away.
Thank you so much, Lana. Thank you so much, Peggy. Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you to everyone on the committee. And and most importantly, for all the folks who've dialed in today. I already am a huge fan. I think my most important qualification today is I'm now part of the Janeshia fan club. Someone who is
Estoy trabajando para el Arqui, él sí lo conoces desde siempre.
Bobsledding for the very first time in my life. The other
Y pues él es por horas, es de que
sounds like
pues
we translation.
¿Pero los Estados Unidos, quizás?
Karen Soto.
Espérame.
Karen Soto, would you mind turning your mic off?
Espérame.
Por favor. Gracias.
Yes. Hi.
Okay, thank you. Would you mind turning your mic off? Thank you. Gracias.
I work with the Recording Industry Association of America. I've been here for about 7 years before, and my job here is working on international policy. So my job is to go to foreign countries and try to help those governments adopt regulations, rules, try to make the environment better for the music community. And that involves protections, that involves enforcement, that involves helping folks find the resources to produce and to create. And so it's a job that I really love because I get to take the creative industry and particularly the American creative industry and help them do well overseas in all places around the world. I was just in Rio last week, and it was all American music. And there's some incredible Brazilian music, of course, incredible Brazilian film, but it's so amazing the extent to which American creators are global creators. And that is something that was a really unifying concept that I've gotten to experience. I also head up something called the Digital Creators Coalition, which is a group of creative industries here in Washington that works with the US government to try to advance strong protections for creators around the world. And that's something we work on quite a bit. I also help lead RIAA's policy on AI when it comes to international work. And so I want to talk a little bit today about things that other governments are doing, not just the United States, that can both help as well as profoundly hurt creators around the world. And so just to make sure we're all aware of what's going on, not just in the US, but globally, because creativity is a global human right, which is protected under the UN Declaration on Human Rights. but it can also be threatened by policies and practices around the world. So Lana, back to you, and thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, George. We are so excited to have your expertise and wealth of knowledge on this panel. And you're just such a kind soul. And I'm very happy to be on this, this committee with you. So thank you all panelists for introducing yourselves. Let's jump right in. A lot of people learn about copyright after it is too late, myself included. That's why I'm here. So this conversation is imperative that we are all figuring this out together. And what we want to do today is just frame the conversation around the topic. With advancements of technology and AI, do we really have control of our name and likeness and intellectual property? So let's dive in. This first question's for Shaka. So as an artist and entertainer, how does the advancement of AI affect your control over your name and likeness and IP? And do you think that artists have enough autonomy and control over the use and protection of their brand?
Well, thank you for the question. Well, it definitely affects, our ownership of our name and likeness. As we see, we had our SAG-AFTRA strike, and that was really a big part of what went down. And fortunately, one of the big issues was whether or not they could use AI replications of actual actors. And we concluded, or as we negotiated, that there needs to be explicit consent before they use an actor's IP to make a character, and there also has to be consent about the use and how it's going to be utilized. And a studio can't do that for multiple projects; they got to do it per project. That was also a big concern, and I think that has been a major sticking point, and it was a big part of concluding the SAG-AFTRA strike. But that is a part of the problem that is across all parts of the industry. So that part just affected SAG-AFTRA. But as a content creator, you don't have the protections of SAG-AFTRA, not necessarily, at least. And so that has been really important. But as an artist, it's important to know that you can negotiate for these things in individual contracts that you receive. So whether or not it's as a content creator and you're receiving, a post from a brand, you can say, look, I want to make sure there's no derivative works based on AI that are used from whatever content I'm going to provide you. So in that sense, I'm glad that I have my own legal background, so I can make sure that as these things happen, I'm able to advocate for myself. But it's important to educate others to do the same, because a lot of people don't know that they can do that. And a lot of actors and people in the entertainment industry are willing to kind of bargain away their rights without really knowing what they're bargaining away, because they have a quick payday, without realizing that payday may actually stop their entire career. So that is what I'm kind of focused on, is educating people in the industry, making sure that SAG-AFTRA keeps up with what is happening, so that as new technologies arise, we can also further address what's happening in that area as well.
That's so great. And you've really been on the front line of all of this too. I've seen you at the strikes, and I think just making more people aware of it, even that they have a choice in that. And that is something that they can ask for, because the contracts were not always set up that way, so thank you for that. Janeshia, you're also in a similar space in that you work a lot in film and TV. So as someone who has performed as an actress on television, but you're also a published author, what are your thoughts on your autonomy and control over the use and protection of your brand as it stands right now?
Yeah, so great question. I feel that people forget that there is an option of no, right? I think as we navigate a lot, people just feel, I call it this eager beaver thing, right? So people are just so eager beaver to do whatever it takes. And it's like, well, there is an option of no, right? So I can say, hey, I don't agree to that, and be okay with it. But for whatever reason, people have different motivations, different, ways that they're trying to get somewhere. And so they're sacrificing a lot of things that they don't realize will come and affect them in the end, right? So for me, because like you said, doing TV, like I've done a bunch of Marvel projects. I've been in a situation where I've doubled an actress, right? And everyone's talking about deep fakes and stuff, but before deep fakes, we had face swapping, right? That's a big use for a lot of these action films, because when you have to double an actor or an actress face on, right? If they show me doubling an actress and it's a dead giveaway that she didn't use that wire and fly over that house. So they'll do the thing called face swapping, right? So I think one, it's really important for people to understand this, the whole AI thing has been around for a while. It's kind of just exploded and people are like, whoa, where'd this thing come from? It's like, no, it's been here. Remember when you engaged in that like aging app where you put your face in there to see what you look like at 60 years old? Yeah, that was part of that too. So, so we have to be able to understand, like, we've been participating in these things, and then now it's like, wait, where did it come from? It's like, no, it's kind of been here. So for me, as I navigate, I'm always wanting to make sure I understand, like what Shaka said about a contract, right? What is in this contract? Because we're so quick to hit the, you know, when we're on a, say we're filling out something, right? Or you're online and you can't get to the next page without hitting that permissions and guidelines button, right? And we're very quick to hit that without actually reading what it says. So we need to get to the point where we're actually reading things. And when we don't agree, don't click, right? Because we're getting caught in this space of, well, I have to go to the next page, or I have to go to the next space. No, you actually do not. You don't. No is an option. So I really do make sure that I understand what I'm signing up for. And if I don't agree with it, let's have a collaboration. Let's have a discussion about it, because your name is your name. Like, I will cancel a commitment, I will cancel an engagement if my name is spelled wrong. Why? Because I already gave you the answer on how to spell it. And if you spell it any other way, then it is not me, right? We all know the very, very popular story about Steph Curry, right? Before he got into the NBA, he had these huge meetings with all these, you know, high profile footwear companies. And he didn't sign with a particular company because they couldn't even pronounce his name properly. Like, there's the problem, right? So your name means everything. If you forget the hyphen in my last name, now Adams suddenly becomes my middle name, and that's not correct. So we have to really stay true to our identity, because it does matter. I don't drink, I don't smoke. So if someone went to deep fake me in a bar, you know, I would have a problem with that, because my image and my brand is everything that I've done and created. So I hope that answered your question.
It totally did. It did. And too, like, the power of no. I think that's a learned thing, because in the beginning, we all start off saying, yes, please hire me. Yes, please. Oh, I'll
Eager beaver.
take everything.
Yeah.
But we can't do that anymore, because there's too much at stake now. And it's great that you read through everything. And if you don't understand something, like, ask a lawyer. Like, I had to learn that the hard way too. And it's a great time to be a lawyer. So speaking of lawyers, let's segue. So Wallace, like, after hearing from artists, do you have anything to add as to, like, the autonomy and the control over the use and protection of brands, and how are you seeing that being implemented in your practice?
I think the biggest problem, particularly with AI, is that it doesn't necessarily ask permission. The way it works is there's a program, a template, whatever, set up, a computer algorithm, and it says what it's going to do. So it's going to, the way it educates itself is consuming all of the information on the internet, which, yes, all of us can do that, but all of us can't retain all of it all the time and then build on it and then improve on it and then, like, remember it all. So in a way, it's interesting, but I think the problem for the clients is, you know, again, with the music stuff, and then with I wrote that article about Sora, which is a text to video application. So in other words, you can say, I want my dog to, you know, run through the backyard of my house, or run across the lawn of the White House and fetch or bite the president or chase a ball and knock over a security guard. Anything you say, dictated by text, and it will create a video of those things. And the video is based on what you say, but also what it can glean from the internet. In other words, all right, it'll find a picture of your dog on your social media, and it can find the White House easily, right? They could some millions of pictures, and whoever you wanted it to bite or wherever it's going to go, you'd have it running around the Eiffel Tower. But there was with all the pictures and all the information that we put, as you said, someone said earlier, a lot of times we're giving them permission. When you upload a picture to Facebook, you've given that to the world. You may not realize that, or Twitter or anywhere else. You've given it to the world. Like, that license says they can do anything they want with that, right? Now, Facebook itself may not do anything with it, but the technologies are combing the internet. And the problem, as I see it, the downside of all this is, yes, it's horse and buggy now. Like, if you see one of those Sora dictated text to videos, it kind of looks like an old cartoon, like when we were kids and they had those kind of, stop image kind of cartoon. The thing is, horse and buggy only took 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 years to become a Tesla, right? And a Formula One car, right? Cars have come a long way from the horse and buggy. Well, guess what? The computers work even faster. Like, some of the guys that I know in tech who do say this is a dangerous thing, is the old 2001: A Space Odyssey, that it's going to get, it's smart enough to help us, and then it's going to get smarter than us. And because to some extent AI can then inform itself, it can say, hey, I'm going to change the directions I was given. I'm going to start giving myself directions. I mean, I know that's like a nightmare scenario of movies, and I'm sure there will be movies about it soon. But I think the biggest problem for the clients, one by one, is they don't know. In other words, you don't know who's combing through your music, combing through your writings, combing through your social media photos, which AI application is then consuming all this and making it part of their body of knowledge. Now, one of the legal analogies that's always the challenge is, well, isn't that what a human does? Like, a human, a writer reads books and then writes his own book, and a painter looks at other paintings in a museum and then paints his own way. Some of them are better than the masterpieces, some of them are not, but we're all learning based on the pre-existing information. It's the midget standing on the shoulder of the giant concept. That was all fine and well when we were talking about copyright and trademark with humans. When you start talking about supercomputers that educate themselves and get smarter every time they write another song. And I did have a friend of mine who used to work at Google, was the very first person a couple of years ago who mentioned AI to me. And he said, you won't believe this stuff. I told him I had a dog that died. I wanted a sad song in a jazz format with, kind of a whatever, Miles Davis feel. And within a minute, I had this amazing song that almost made me cry over my dog that didn't even, wasn't even a real thing. And so I remember thinking, wait a minute, what? What did it do? But on the upside, of course, I don't know, I'm going to go on too much, but again, this all has to do with client and the legal issues. AI can be helpful. I mean, now when you go on LinkedIn and you want to post a post, it'll say, do you want AI to rewrite this for you? Right. And I've had AI rewrite it. Usually I have to just strike it out and go back to what I wrote. eBay, if you want to list a product, same thing. They'll say, you write what you think. Do you want AI to now rewrite it for you and make it more comprehensive? Like I said, usually the problem there is it's giving you too much information. I just want a headline and that's all. But the fact is, all of these all the Facebook and eBay and LinkedIn, they've got a version of AI on there to work with your work. Obviously, the professors in the law schools are going crazy trying to figure out which kids are actually good writers and which kids are using ChatGPT to write their paper on whatever topic it's assigned. In the old days, you might go and plagiarize some information from somewhere. But nowadays, you don't even, the AI does it for you. And here's the problem for the client and for everybody. You don't even know where it got it from. You know what I mean? It combed over all the information, the keywords, and it's plucking what it thinks you want for your thing. So, like I said, it's exciting new frontier, and some clients do use it. I know the Copyright Office has said they won't accept the fully AI copyright registration, but then the issue becomes collaboration. I mean, when you're making a recording, is auto-tune, is that not AI of a sort? It can figure out where your vocal's off key, and it can put it in the right key in the right time. So that's a form of AI. That's kind of an innocuous one, although it's helpful. But again, the problem is more of the Sona and And these kind of products where Sora, where they're creating something new that doesn't exist, but it's not really new because it's based on all of the existing information out there. And so, can you figure, not unlike sampling in the old days, the trick was to find the sample, or when people manipulated it, you couldn't always figure it out. But now, with AI, how on earth would you figure out where it got it from? Again, it's a song in the stuff for his dead dog in the style of whatever, Miles Davis. It sounded like a Miles Davis saxophone. It sounded like that kind of song, but were parts of it, or was it all just emulating what it thought based on its knowledge of every Miles Davis song? Is it a new creation, or is it really just a derivative creation? That's the conundrum. That's the issue that all of us are going to have to try to figure out, number one. And then number two, and I know we'll get into it more, regulation. How do we regulate? The problem with the government system is it moves very slowly. So by the time the government gets around to regulating, AI will rule the world. So the trick might be more, unfortunately, lawsuits. You know what I mean? An artist suing over the Drake AI, the estate saying you can't use Tupac, and somebody figuring out that their music or their video images that they didn't authorize Facebook to use got picked up somewhere else where they weren't authorized, and then start a lawsuit and put some parameters around what AI can do. And the key is, and this will be my final little soapbox, the key is we are smarter than AI now, right? But it's getting smarter than we every day. Like I said, it's coming from horse and buggy that we're watching to Tesla. Again, a friend of mine who works in tech said, this stuff learns fast. It may look crude now, but 6 months from now or a year from now, it'll be so much better that then how do you protect your image? Like if it was out there on the internet and it can manipulate it and move it and put you, have your dog biting Harrison Ford's leg or Johnny Depp's leg, and he's going to say, well, that's my likeness, but, it's not exactly my likeness because it's computer generated based on 10,000 photographs of you. You know what I mean? Like it's like a giant sampling nightmare in the music business, only more complicated because it's tech. So I think the key for all of us is to keep the clients mobilized, try to keep lawmakers on top of it, to lobby, we as an organization, USIPA and all the other IP organizations, just keep making people aware of it. Just keep putting it out there. Not so much to cry wolf, but to, before the wolf is in the house, right? Before the call comes from inside the house, as they say.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to say the cat has already been out of the bag. Wolf came and ate the cat, and now we're all trying to pick up the pieces. So, Wallace, you said something that really sparked my interest, and it was that we're all kind of sampling from these previous works, right? Like just even as an artist in general, right. I am a derivative of the works that I have ingested, right?
Right.
Is that I paid for those works. I paid to go to that concert. I paid to watch that YouTube video via blanket license or whatever it is. So I think the problem is right now, AI is using and ingesting the work and we're not getting compensated for it. So right. I wanted to bring this next question to George. So given the likely potential misuse of AI, like Sora, with models like Sora who generate lifelike videos from text prompts and essentially converting stories into video or producing commercials with famous faces, things like that, or even the Drake reference that Lita had earlier. Given the likely potential misuse, do you believe that lawsuits will have to set the precedent and the regulations for AI? Or are there different ways that we can protect ourselves right now?
Lana, a fantastic question. So maybe a two-part answer. The first is I completely agree that there will be litigation for sure, and Wallace is right about that. And we've certainly seen that with respect to copyright. and AI. And there will be determinations which are coming out of our courts, which will address some of those. But as folks know, court cases are case by case. So did the AI in this particular instance with this particular facts for this particular individual, for this particular sector, maybe it's a book, maybe it's a photograph, maybe it's a newspaper, that doesn't necessarily apply to music or to movies or something else within another circumstance. So case by case is a partial solution, but not a comprehensive one. But as Wallace said, comprehensive solutions take time and are often complicated. But I will say in the copyright space, and that's a legal concept, right? And that is all about compensation and consent, right? And so those are critical baseline, and those are important. In the United States, we have a fairly robust system, and it will be tested by the courts. And that exists today. But where we don't have a robust system is with respect to a related concept that we've all been talking about, which is name, image, and likeness. And those are rights that exist at the state level. So California has a different version of that than Illinois, that has a different version of it than Tennessee. Good news, Tennessee just passed new legislation which increased and enhanced the protection for name, image, and likeness for artists where there's a nexus for Tennessee. Tennessee is obviously a great state for music. And legislators there recently passed the Elvis Act, right? And that's a great statute which added protection for voice to existing protections for name and likeness. This could be a template for future federal legislation. So now let's look at Congress. Congress is in the process, and Lita kind of made reference to this, Congress is in the process to responding to the call by artists to protect their name, their voice, their image, and their likeness at the federal level. So you don't have to just go to one state and then hope to go to another state. And that could take some time, and there's different law in each one of those states. Congress is working on some different potential laws there. In the Senate, a law has been introduced, or what's called the discussion draft. So it's not an actual bill yet, but people are thinking about it. Then in the House, a bill called the No AI Frauds Act has been introduced and is gaining tremendous momentum. And I encourage everyone on this call to go to the website Human Artistry Campaign. I'll put it into the chat. And this is a collection of over 150 organizations around the world, plus a growing number of individual creators who are saying, please, Congress, protect our name, image, and likeness. Please make sure that the First Amendment is protected. Please make sure but we can have a future in this creative business. And these are rights that don't belong to record labels or studios. They belong to artists. And that's really something to understand that's really critical about this legislation. The Human Artistry Campaign is an organization that exists around a series of principles. And those principles included that the idea that if someone is going to use a copyrighted work, right? So Lana, you have a sound recording, right? You have musical works that you performed that belong to you. And those you have to, if anyone else wants to use them, whether it's Spotify or whether it's OpenAI, they should get your consent and you should receive compensation. And that is a fundamental personal right. And it's not just a right, it's about ethics, right? It's about morality. And the thing about AI, it offers some potential as a tool, but it should not be generating content. It does, but the problem with that for our culture is significant. Not only is it commercially concerning for artists who will then have to compete with themselves and who have not received a license for their use of their copyrighted works, but also it raises real moral and cultural questions. Our society is diverse, but our content hasn't always been as diverse as it should have been. There are underserved communities and there are underserved creators who haven't been reflected in the past, and we're growing and we're trying to get better and better all the time, of course, but most AI is trained on old content. It's also trained on pretty unacceptable content, right? Imagine the dialogues that are going around in some regions of the world that are pretty arcane and that are pretty unacceptable. AI has no moral compass, but it will produce whatever it is asked to produce. Humans for better or for worse, have a moral compass. We don't all have the same compass, but that doesn't exist in an AI algorithm, right? If you have a massive language model, we could basically, based on this conversation alone, create some pretty awful speech, and some pretty awful music and some pretty awful video, and based on all of our voices without our consent today. And that can happen. It may not be perfect, but there needs to be guardrails around that. These name, image, and likeness laws that the Congress are looking at are very important. They're extremely timely. And I agree with everyone on this call that says Congress is slow to respond to technology. But here's a case where each of us can be involved in that process to demonstrate to legislators that this legislation is needed to protect the name, image, and likeness so others can't use it without your permission, without your compensation, and also without giving you credit, right? That's that moral part of this again. We don't want to just put people's voice out there without saying, hey, that's Lana's voice. We don't want to put people's cool stunts out there without saying that's Janesia's. That's her video, that's her image. So maybe I'll stop there and say that there are profound ethical, cultural, moral components here. And by the way, when an open AI or another AI company says, oh no, there's too much data, it's impossible to get consent from everyone. It's impossible to give compensation to everyone. Guess what? It is possible. There are a lot of good AI companies out there who are doing that thing exactly. So when Google or Microsoft or Meta says, oh, we can't do it, it's too hard, the answer is you should, but also you can. So maybe I'll close with that. Thanks, Lana.
So great, George. Thank you. It's just so wonderful to hear also the process, because people like me, I don't know the exact process of how these things work. And I shared this in our last panel, but I just want to piggyback off of what you said. And I think artists need 3 things to feel safe, and that is consent, compensation, and credit. And that's exactly what we need to do here. And you sparked something in me. I took a screenshot. FKA Twigs went before Congress yesterday, and I just want to share what she wrote, because I think it's exactly speaking to what you were saying. Today, I spoke in front of Congress to the senators about the importance of legislation to protect artists' voice and likeness, art, and intellectual property from the misuse of deep fakes and AI. I am passionate about exploring new technologies with the guise of expanding my art further and exploring new ways to express myself and reach fans. However, it is imperative that at this dawn of great technological growth, legislation is put in place to ensure that an artist's likeness is controlled by the artist themselves. And I will second and third and fourth and fifth that. So Dennis, this next one's for you. So you've been on both sides of the camera, which is really cool to have your perspective. I know you've written and worked with a lot of phenomenal talents like Paul McCartney and on a multitude of different shows. And you also mentioned that you are involved with an AI company as well. So to that, whose data do you think should AI be permitted to ingest? And should artists have the right to consent to the use of their material?
Well, I always think that the artist should have the rights. I just, I think that the way AI is moving down the path so quickly, it's dangerous. I love listening to Shaka. I thought he made a lot of sense, and Janeshia as well, and Wallace, and certainly George. But we have to keep the rights with any individual. If you have created something, I think one of the things that we need to start doing is, instead of pushing this AI thing down the path so quickly, is coming up with some sort of detection software that can tell you when they're using something that isn't theirs. And that's, seems to me, in all the tech that I've worked around brilliant people. that's something that I think is very attainable. And I think it's an absolute necessity, because if we're going to continue with the AI the way it is, we have to have a way to detect when somebody is using it and almost have the asterisk. As a composer, I've never used it. We messed around and told the AI to come up with this tune, and I couldn't believe what it came up with. It was very good, and it was literally in 5 seconds. It was insanity. And that scared the hell out of me, quite frankly, because I look at AI and I think it can be used as a tool. I think, and if we look at it and we learn to edit and polish it in how we want to use it, but then we say, yes, I've been using this tool instead of just relying on it and letting it do what it wants to do. Music is I think the most dangerous, because it's really the only invisible art form. The rest of it we see, and music is invisible. So, I think a true artist, I want to depend on myself, depend on ourselves, rather than machinery, because this machinery can be learning things that, as we've all been discussing, it can take over. It can do something that we don't necessarily agree with. And that's why, in working with Dan Mapes, the natural AI that they're building is all about biological intelligence. It's not about this machine based on algorithms, statistics, and all of that dry stuff that is a lot of info. I think it's natural intelligence creates a much safer and beautiful environment, because it's based on humanity. It's not just based on statistic. So I think that we really have to pay attention to this, or there has to be something with the art of deep learning that has this human touch to it. Because I know I'm not answering the question exactly the way you asked it, but I thought it was pretty well answered with all my constituents, the way in how they were speaking. I'm just really concerned because I feel that we're pushing this technology down the road so quickly that we need some checks and balances on it. And I don't think there's any, and that is my main concern. And bringing, again, this biological intelligence to the equation rather than just data. We have to have more heart and soul and humanity built into it. And that's what my friend at Versus is doing. And I think that that's really important to promote that and bring that company forward. And a lot of the people in AI are getting very familiar with Versus now. And I think a lot of them are agreeing that needs to be a very strategic component to the future and the immediate future of AI. We can't let AI get out of hand. And I think right now it's on a fast track, and there's not a lot of checks and balances on it. I mean, when I can go to the internet and I can hear Frank Sinatra sing Bohemian Rhapsody, I mean, that's like, I'm like, wow. And it was actually pretty good. And I'm like, wow, how are they doing stuff? It's really crazy. And that to me is getting it out of control, because the artist has had no say in that usage whatsoever, and that's why we, as this team of people that are really wanting to know more and get more involved, we have to push that out so that legislation addresses that and puts some sort of controls in place, or we're headed for something that I think could be very disastrous.
Thank you, Dennis. I totally agree. And it's great to hear, George say, yes, there are ways to ask consent, and that your company, the company that you're working with, is actually an ethical AI company. So there are ways to do that. And I think maybe that is the solution here. So, and then the other question is, do we need bots to monitor the bots? And how safe is that, right? So we're at a really unprecedented time, and I just thank you all for being here. I would love to wrap this up with just 2 points that people should recall from this conversation, and I'll kind of throw in my last quote. It's a Rick Rubin quote. I love him. As the world isn't waiting on more of the same. So I think that really wraps up, this talk, hopefully, and it's interesting that it became an ethical conversation about humanity, because that's actually what we're dealing with here. And the consciousness of art, right? So anyway, thank you all, and I'd love to hear just two little points that you want to share that people should recall from this conversation. So Shaka.
Before y'all get to that, anyone in that's on this Zoom that has a question, put your question in the chat, and we'll take a few minutes for a Q&A. But before that, yeah, go ahead.
Do you want to do Q&A first, or
no, go ahead with the 2 points first.
Points, and then we'll hit the Q&A. Sounds good. Awesome. Shaka.
I think well, one point is to not be fearful of AI. I'm someone that fully leans into what's new and cutting edge, and I think it's going to have so many positive applications for us as a society. I will say I do remember when there was Napster and the music industry thought that would be the killer. And what happened was new technologies arose and the industry adapted so that people did get paid, and then consumers also had pretty easy and low cost way to get music. So I think we'll see stuff like that in AI. Remember, AI is not really, it has no direction, it's all about what we put into it. And so you have AI bots that are being able to tell if something is a derivative of AI. So I think you're going to have technologies that are sort of like, offsetting what could be potential dangers here. And so I think the second point is to I guess immerse yourself in the AI, figure out what points that you could use it to better yourself, whether that's legally, educationally, and then of course in an artistic sense. And I think that will get people to a point where we're able to navigate this without a fear. I think fear is going to lead to not probably missing a lot of points on the way. And so if we can embrace AI and also embrace the regulation of it and embrace how we tackle it together, I think we're going to have a lot more positive progress in that arena.
Awesome. And I actually learned about ChatGPT from you. I don't know if you know that or not, but I also use it quite a bit. Not to create, but to write my emails. So next, Janeshia.
Okay, hey, thanks. So I think 2 points to take away. One, as if you're a creator, innovator, right? Like, we're all pretty artistic and talented. When you are a creator, it's very important that you understand what you're putting your stuff in, right? Because like for me, I'm not going to necessarily put my entire written work on the internet, completely type it out. You know what I mean? Like, we have to have some type of control and resistance for our brand, right? Because we are a brand, so that it can be maintained and preserved the way we want it to be. And I think people are starting to realize that now. It used to be the wild, wild west, and I'm just do it all and show them everything. And it's like, hey, no, kind of scale it down, because there are people out there that have these millions of dollars that can take your work. And now it becomes a 10-year lawsuit, like the lady that created The Matrix, or like, so you have these type of things where I think people just need to be smart with how they're honing on to their own projects, their own IP, right? Their intellectual property, because it can be misused and abused. The second thing I would say is that AI is not going anywhere. It's actually been here, right? I think I said that before. Like, we all thought it was really cool and funny when we did these aging apps and all this. Oh, what would your baby look like if it was you and, Denzel Washington had a kid, right? We did all these things, and there was print involved, but we didn't care to read it, right? Because it was so small. I don't have the time to read 6 pages. But now the shit is snuck up on us, and we're like, whoa, where did it come from? So I just think in the midst of the AI movement right now, this IP movement, that we take the time out to read, right? Some things are getting us because we're not even reading. Like, we're giving permission and we've used no words. So I think those would be the 2 points I would want to tell someone. Just try to read, control what you're giving out, and understand that the minute it's in the universe, the minute it's out there, someone might manipulate it. So, yeah.
So great. No is an option.
And no is always an option. No is always an option until you can get your yes, right?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Wallace, 2 points.
Yeah, I mean, again, I would say on the one hand, trying to police it yourself as best you can. An artist, you register your copyrights, you register your trademarks, you keep track of your work, paper trail it as best you can to know what you have out there. Beware of the permissions you grant when you submit things, all on the plus side. And then on the negative side, or whatever, on the protective defensive side, just to try to be aware of the different, AIs and what they do. And if you can, figure out that your voice is being used, or a deep fake photo of your video is being used, or someone's, taking your creative, copyrighted or trademarked intellectual property work, that you take action, either go to a lawyer or, to have them start a legal action, or at least write a letter and try to make the other side play fair.
Awesome. Thank you. And hire Wallace or Shaka whenever you need a lawyer. All right, George.
Thanks.
2 points. Sorry, George.
Sorry about that. I would say the use and development of AI should be ethical and human-centric. So there are moments, and I think Shaka is right, there are moments when it can be a tool, but also the use of AI can also have profound effects on creators, and to understand that the use of AI may not be a victimless crime. In other words, when you use AI to generate new content, you are effectively engaged in the theft of other people's content. So understand that it is not an act without consequence, and that furthermore, for the future of our society and the robustness of really important priorities that we as creators, I think, feel at our core, which is advancing diversity, advancing inclusion of our society and our creators, it is essential that we don't recycle stale air, right? If we are relying on content that is trained AI models, that is a decade old, a century old, and from other cultures that don't maybe share those same priorities, what we'll get, and then moreover, when AI is trained on artificially generated content, we're degrading the creativity that comes forward in the future to the point that we ultimately have stale content, right? It's generated based on generated, based on generated, based on old. That is not a cocktail for creativity, and it's certainly not a cocktail for a robust future for creators. So I agree, there's some really nice things that AI can do, but I also want to make sure that we always think about, just because we're using AI to do not harmful things, it may actually implicitly be harmful because it's relying on other people's content that nobody ever gave permission for, nobody ever gave compensation for, nobody got credit for. So just to keep those in mind as we think about this technology and the implications of its use. So thanks again.
Thank you, George. And last time you said humans should be promoted, not displaced. And I really loved that. And I feel like that's the cocktail that I want. All right, Dennis, 2 points.
Well, I agree with what George just said. It should be used as a tool, and it's a valuable tool, but it shouldn't be based on dependency. We can create, we're humans, we are intelligent, but at the same time, I think we have to look at the safety of this and really inject the human side and teach these machines kindness. And I think that's one of the most important things. I've spoken with a lot of AI guys, and that was one of their main concerns, is that if they're just taking information and you don't implement kindness into that, you can create a monster really fast. So I think, again, it's just like how we bring up our families. You teach your children kindness, most of the problems go away that people are very concerned with today. because, you know, there's no mean spirit. You know, it's kindness that is so valuable. So I think, again, you know, teaching AI and really hand in hand with humanity and kindness, I think that's the two things that I think it's a great tool. It's a valuable tool, but we have to certainly go hand in hand with humanity and kindness with it.
That's so great. And to Lita's point, to like just tie this all up,
Absolutely.
she talked about AI having some sort of a consciousness.
Yes.
You know, and that's really on us then to make that happen. So
Yes.
so thank you, everyone. We'd love to open up the floor for a Q&A. So everyone hold tight. And Peggy, if you want to head this round and just see what questions are.
And I may have to jump off because I'm gonna have to jump on a call in about a minute.
So we are going to say thank you to you, Wallace, and
Sure.
a big thank you to Lana and the entire panel, all the speakers today. I've been taking notes. I've been learning a lot, and I thought I knew more than most, and I have a lot to learn about this. There were some I don't see any questions, so feel free to also come off mic if I've missed your question, but I'll try to wrap this up and say I heard some real gold nuggets today, and one of them was I think it was Janeshia that said it's like the Wild West, right? And it really is. And I remember when Napster did come out, Shaka mentioned Napster, and Napster was incredibly scary at the time for artists, right? And yet it went away. And different controls came in, and different artists found, you know, a different way to make their money. And I think that I think we just have to have faith maybe in humanity. If we walk around just in fear every day that, you know, the grid's gonna shut down, or we're gonna have no food, or the AI is gonna take over, it's gonna be like the Marvel movies, you know, or Divergent. We can't live that way. We have to have faith in humanity and faith in ourselves. We can say, I think it was Wallace that talked about the horse and buggy to Tesla. That was terrifying when he mentioned that. But remember, with the horse and buggy, we didn't have seatbelts. Now we have seatbelts. We have, you know, recalls on items. There's some control. I think we have to have faith in ourselves and not live in fear and continue to create. I'd like to think that AI will never be original, and whatever it is whatever it does create that it says original, I would think is stale, right? So let's have faith in each other. USIPA, I just want to close with a big thank you to Scott Frank again for creating the IP Alliance and USIPA, and also our collective, our creators, enablers. Those are the people that, you know, help sell the tickets and help us continue to create. And then the protectors like Lita and Wallace, you know, George, all those that are protecting us. And then of course the users. Without the users, there'd be nobody to listen to us. And nobody to buy our tickets and to keep the industry going. So a big thank you to everyone, and thank you all for being here. I'm going to check the chat one more time, and I see that somebody's put something in here. Oh, great discussion. Yes, it was a great discussion. Thank you all for joining us today, and I'm going to say good night. Thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.